Our region's done better than many competing regions over the past 5 years or so, and over the past generation, the economic transformation here has been pretty remarkable. At the same time, across our region, people and places have been left behind. And last year, the Allegheny Conference on Community Development set out to address the issue with a new initiative called the Strengthening Communities Partnership. The idea is to focus private sector investment on communities with potential. McKees Rocks and Wilkinsburg were the first to receive funding, and this year the focus is on Mount Oliver and Knoxville in the city of Pittsburgh. Bill Schenck is chair of the Strengthening Communities Partnership and vice chairman of Tri-State Capital. Greg Jones is executive director of Economic Development South. And good to see you both. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Bill. Thank you.
Before we start, Economic Development South, I assume that includes Mount Oliver and Knoxville?
It does. They're two of our 9 communities. We represent roughly the Brownsville Road and Route 51 corridors. That's a total of 9 neighborhoods. That's 7 boroughs and 2 city neighborhoods. So actually 3 city neighborhoods now.
So this is sort of a subset of those communities we're really focusing on.
These are 2 of our member neighborhoods.
Excellent. So Bill, back to the whole point of Strengthening Communities Partnership. How did this come about, and what's the conference trying to accomplish here?
This partnership is really a development based on facts. And the facts are that we've had communities in this region that have come back from close to economic disaster. 2 vital communities that were troubled at one point are the South Side and East Liberty. Leaders in those communities rose up at one point and developed plans within the community that the community could get its arms around. And then they went out and they found people to fund those communities with individuals that could work full-time implementing those plans, because you really can't do that work as a volunteer.
And so that's really the beginning of this. And communities with real potential, I would assume, too, as opposed to just sort of, you know, goodwill people on the ground.
What we said was that we can duplicate what happened in East Liberty and the South Side by raising money to put funding behind communities that have real leadership and real plans. So I've identified 5 communities that can do that. As you mentioned, East Liberty, and
Wilkinsburg,
and McKees Rocks.
Right.
Greg's 2 communities, which he's here to talk about, Mount Oliver and Knoxville, Connellsville and Washington. And what we're talking about now is raising the funds to put staff in place to implement those high-quality plans.
Okay, and so you've got the organization in place. What do you really want to do there in Knoxville and Mount Oliver?
Well, I think Bill made an excellent point, which is that a lot of these communities have spent considerable time planning and organizing around what they see happening in their communities. And they've at the same time witnessed, in some cases, 40, 50 years of decline. And what they've lacked are the resources or the capacity to actually implement these plans. And an organization like Economic Development South, which I'm the executive director of, we view ourselves in that role of the implementation arm of these existing community networks. So our model is somewhat unique in that we have all these communities working together to see impactful projects happen in any one of our neighborhoods.
That's great. And so at Mount Oliver in particular, what's the potential there? What do you like? What's the sales pitch for what can happen?
Well, in Mount Oliver and Knoxville, you have just fantastic housing stock. You have a very traditional downtown area with great potential for redevelopment. You also have tremendous traffic counts. Brownsville Road is, along with Route 51, are pretty much the only 2 options for travel from some of these southern neighborhoods to downtown and some of the other destination and employment centers in the region. So it's never been an issue of how we get people there. It's been giving them a reason to stop there.
Well, and I would think, too, with the South Side you mentioned, already a great success story. These 2 communities are kind of the next one south from the South Side.
And that's been a big part of our vision, is this idea that the ultimate driver is this idea of accessibility. I, prior to this, worked on the north side, and most of the homes that we sold were to young professionals. And the vision is that as these folks get a little bit older, maybe start to have a family, you're going to start to want something that looks like suburban living, but also has that urban accessibility that you've grown accustomed to. The same reason that people moved to these neighborhoods in the first place in the 20s and 30s.
Isn't that true? Well, Bill, there's a real incentive for companies that want to invest in this kind of effort, right? The state makes it very attractive?
Absolutely. And as a matter of fact, what's happened is that we have for Wilkinsburg and McKees Rocks committed $500,000 a year for 6 years from the corporate community to do the kinds of things that Greg's talking about in those communities. And what it is that it's called the Neighborhood Partnership Program, and it's a state tax credit program. And a corporation, for example, that would commit, say, $100,000 to Greg's Community Development Corporation could save $93,000 up to $93,000 in taxes.
So you're ultimately only out of pocket $7 grand to make sure he gets $100,000 for this effort?
Absolutely, that's right.
Wow. So effort right now to kind of get this one stood up the way McKees Rocks and Wilkinsburg were last year?
We're actively talking with corporations right now about committing up to $500,000 total. The minimum contribution is $50,000 to Greg's program, and to commit that money for 6 years so that he knows that he can put staff in place to implement those plans.
Well, and I just want only a few seconds, Greg, but this has got to really be meaningful for.
That's $3 million, and every penny of those dollars are going into economic development services, housing redevelopment opportunities, small business services, grant and loan programs, facade renovations, as well as social services, both senior and youth programming. So it's truly a comprehensive approach to redeveloping these neighborhoods. It's transformative.
Wow. And Bill, if businesses want to invest or get involved, cash or in kind, where do they go? Who do they call?
Go to the Allegheny Conference.
All right.
That's the place to start.
Easy enough to find. AlleghenyConference.org. Bill Schenck from Tri-State Capital, Greg Jones from Economic Development South. Congratulations on the great start on this, and good luck with it.
Thank you so much, Bill.
Yeah. And we'll be back in a minute with little dollars and cents. Stay with us.